Hello and welcome to this week's JK film review. As you can see, we're doing something completely different. This is my good friend Mr. Noah Reich, and we're going to be talking today about Interstellar, which we had the pleasure of seeing on Sunday. So, obviously we went into this film with high expectations.
Yeah, I think you can call us both Nolanites.
Yeah.
We're pretty big fans of his. Personally, loved all of his films I've seen. I haven't seen Following, which is his first film, but since then, Memento, Inception, the Batman franchise, obviously. Less keen on The Prestige, personally, but I think it's fair to say every time a director like that comes out with a new film, it's greeted with certain expectations.
Yeah, and it's worth saying that although our expectations are high, the reviews have been a little mixed.
Yeah, mixed, but also I think you can say that about all of his films. I think, as we'll probably talk about, because of the breadth and scope of his ideas and his filmmaking, it does often come with mixed reviews.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are just a little bit ridiculous. But I was mentioning to you before we started, Camilla Long, who writes for the Sunday Times, she said that only 17 minutes of Interstellar was worth watching. So, Camilla, if you are watching, stop watching. Yeah. So, but that being said, people are still enjoying it.
People are loving it, yeah.
It's making a hell of a lot of money and will continue to do so.
Although, maybe slightly underwhelming at the US box office.
Oh, really?
I think it made about 15 mil, but did lose out to Big Hero 6, which was slightly
maybe that's next week's. Or not. So, expectations aside, we went to the IMAX to see it.
Yeah, which I think you have to do if you're going to see it.
We'll touch on that as well, because that's an important thing later on. But it's 3 hours. For you, not a problem, I'm guessing.
No, I think there are people who prefer shorter films in general, and those who love an epic. I think, as I said to you when we were watching it, if you look through most of your favourite films ever, I think quite a lot of them will be 2.5 hours plus.
Yeah.
I think you can take the piss slightly if you go too far.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no doubt.
I don't think it does, other than a slightly overlong first setup.
You're right in that sense, because when a film is longer than 2.5 hours, you get that sense of being fully drawn in. Yeah. And rather than it finishing after 80 minutes, no matter how good, I mean, there are still some great films that come under 2 hours. But you lack the ability to really spend the time just in the cinema even to really kind of let yourself relax and be taken in by the story, which is what Nolan does so well.
Yeah. He's definitely more a director of story rather than character, I would say, as well. Whereas sometimes with the 3-hour films, it's all about building the characters. And that's what some people want from these kind of films, and that's why some people criticise Christopher Nolan's filmmaking, is because his characters are often slightly underdeveloped by the end of the film compared to the length of time. But I think he's so concerned with storytelling that he puts character almost slightly below what he's trying to convey with this incredible epic tale.
Yeah. I mean, you saying that being said, the characters in this are strong. But
I think so.
You've got some big hitters. You've got Anne Hathaway, you've got Michael Caine, Matthew McConaughey, even the kind of smaller parts, the likes of the young son of Matthew McConaughey. He's a guy who's already been in Homeland and things like that.
So it's him from Homeland. Yeah.
So it's not just small parts. It's big household names with a big story, a big director, a big budget. But I think it's something better than that. And he's starting to redefine the way that we think of a blockbuster, and like we were saying, he's making it cool again.
Well, it's not. With kind of Transformers. I know you love Transformers and big summer franchises like that. You kind of get a bit disillusioned with Hollywood filmmaking, I think. But Christopher Nolan comes in with a budget of $150 million, and kind of the studio lets him do what he wants, and that gives him the total creative license to go all out. And what's interesting as well is that he always makes his films under budget. I'm not really sure what that says about him, but you hear so much about films being
delayed
over budget, but he's so meticulous with what he wants, and he knows what he wants so much that I think he manages to have more influence over proceedings than other people.
Yeah. So we've been pretty positive so far, it's fair to say. Let's touch on a few things that maybe weren't as kind of convincing. Namely, you mentioned it earlier, the first 40 minutes.
The first 40 minutes, I think it's problematic, but also you can kind of understand it only once you've seen the whole film.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
It becomes necessary after the 3 hours without giving too much away.
Yeah, because there are small things that happen in the first 40 minutes that you think, oh, well, it's a little bit silly, I'm not really... You forget about it, but by the end of the film, you're like, oh my God, you're a genius. How have you brought us back to that?
Which is quite a common theme in quite a lot of his stuff, like Inception.
And that's great. That's fun.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing. Yeah. Some people find it a bit clunky, how like flashback stuff.
Yeah.
I always find it quite interesting.
Although I was a bit sceptical at first. We had the film. If you haven't seen it, the film starts with these kind of interview clips of these old people talking, and I thought, right, documentary, kind of like what's going on here.
I couldn't quite tell whether they were
real people or not. Yeah. That's good acting. Maybe.
Old guys.
Yeah. Anyway, so 40 minutes in, it clearly starts to hit its stride, but there are still things that do sort of not go wrong, but you can question.
Well, yeah, but one of the great things about his films is that they're so questionable. If you don't go with it, you won't enjoy it.
I think that's a massive thing for this film. You've got to kind of, if you go and see it, you've got to just let it do the work, and you can't kind of go into it thinking, oh, it's like about a black hole, let's question the science. Takes away the fun.
Should we talk about the science aspect? Is quite an important negative about the film, because a lot of the critical reviews are criticising it based on a crazy story that could never happen, basically. And I think that's probably a fair criticism. Yeah. But personally, I am happy to go with the plot of I would call it a fantasy film.
I know, that's definitely fair to say.
But I think one of the criticisms is that the fact that Christopher Nolan's got this scientist, Kip Thorne, on board as an executive producer and advisor to the scripts,
who's also been credited with making the original story.
Yeah,
he's saying that
exactly. And it gives it this air of scientific authority, which I don't think, after watching particularly the last half an hour, you can come out thinking that it has.
Although he's kind of put himself in a bit of a corner by doing that, you can't expect him, although he's, as a director of such film, he's expected to kind of do the research and make sure everything works out. But at the end of the day, his main job is still to make a film that...
Make an exciting...
Exactly. It's entertaining, rather than make something that is going to go in the science book for
that's
GCSE.
True. That's true, but I think the difficulty is how he's taking interviews and he's making it criticised about science on his own terms. He's asking for it to be criticised like that by telling people, oh, look, this is all could happen. This is all real.
Yeah, I mean...
It's not. What? Don't think it's going to be really kind of realistic.
The film is set in this sort of apocalyptic scene.
Mm-hmm.
The date we're not really sure of. That was a slight issue for me at first. I kind of was trying to get my head around what year we're meant to be in,
because it doesn't seem particularly futuristic.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is quite far in the future.
Exactly. And basically, the world is running out of food. There is this kind of deadly dust, which I can sort of go with. I mean, it's not out of this world.
Deadly dust.
I mean, it is deadly dust. It's destroying the crops.
Nicely put.
Bit of alliteration there. And
it's a food crisis, basically.
Yeah. So it's basically effectively famine, and people are starving. And it's also worth noting that the dust is now becoming poisonous.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got this group of scientists led by the two Brants, Michael Caine and Anne Hathaway as his daughter. And one of the issues has to be how Matthew McConaughey, our lead, stumbles upon them.
Yeah. Well, it becomes clear later on, which we can't really talk about, why he stumbles upon them.
Yeah, just for those of you who haven't seen it, we won't.
But he is given the task of captaining a quite exclusive ship quite quickly, isn't
Yeah, I mean, there's
very little chat.
Yeah, there's a little hint at the start of the film about some kind of flashback to McConaughey's character having this incident with piloting.
Yeah.
But there is no real reference to it until sort of they drive up to these gated doors and get thrust into this kind of boardroom where 10 minutes later he's saying, "You're the best pilot we've ever had." Which,
yeah, I think they might have needed to set him up as more of a great pilot first.
Yeah. But that being said, then you have this whole bio of his character before, which is always just a bit like,
you don't want.
You'd rather find it out as the film goes rather than just chronological order.
I think also it's quite strange in this apocalyptic dust bowl how this humongous scientific facility
has been funded.
Has been both funded and totally unfound ever. So I mean, like, I'm inclined always to say, okay, it's a plot device. You have to kind of just accept that.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that kind of thing in. We could pick any film in the world, whatever, and we could pick at the holes.
Yeah,
well,
maybe
you can make holes. Yeah. You can make holes.
Yeah.
And that is one that you can choose to kind of go, well, I'm just going to kind of paste that one over and move on. And it's not. Also, that doesn't make it a worse film. You have to do that as an audience member, which is something nice, actually. You kind of have the ability. Each person will see this film differently. He lets you decide how much you're going to believe him. And if you're willing to really believe him, then he's going to tell you a fantastic story. And I think that's really important. So let's go on to some of the acting.
Yeah.
Obviously, fresh off his Oscar win last year, we've got the God-loving Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, it does
take it away a bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
Lessons I love for him. I think he gives a very good performance.
Oh no, there's no doubt about that.
He's such a kind of charismatic leading man. He's reinvented himself as a serious Hollywood star, which is kind of amazing. I mean, I love How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, but he's a different man in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
He's got all those classics like Fool's Gold. And, but it's great to see someone like that who's kind of you know what, he said, I'm going to stop doing these kind of less interesting projects and I'm going to take on something harder. And
I think what's kind of interesting about his revival is how it was sparked by Magic Mike.
Yeah.
Which is a massively underrated film.
Great film.
In which he gives a great performance, and on the back of that got roles in Mud and Dallas Buyers Club and things like that.
Just picturing him in the tiny yellow shorts.
Yeah, I know.
The
tiny yellow shorts have got him a long way in his career.
Yeah.
But I think he gives a really good performance. Some people criticise Matthew McConaughey for playing Matthew McConaughey, if you see what I mean.
Oh, I think that's unfair.
I think it's unfair, but it's quite a common criticism of him. I'm personally love the man. I think he's great. That's
something I actually would consider almost a positive if I take a spin on what you've said. Because for me, having done this kind of studied acting a little bit, the biggest thing for me that I took out of it was that if you're an actor, the only emotions you can convey truly are ones that you've experienced yourself. Yeah. So, in a sense, let's not get uber pretentious and whatever, but you have to be sort of playing yourself. And if you try and find elements of yourself in the character, it becomes a lot easier to convey because you can relate, and as a result, you become more believable. Because obviously the most believable person is you playing yourself.
It's based on his recent work. He's played vastly different characters.
Come on, you can't exactly compare this to the maniac in Wolf of Wall Street.
No, Wolf of Wall Street, Dallas Buyers Club, which is fantastic, as a horrible kind of redneck character.
Yeah.
And then to his earlier work where he plays kind of pretty boys in rom-coms. I think there's at least a bit of a range of
for sure.
And I don't think he's quite given a performance like this before, where he's such a leading man.
Oh yeah, he is. He is the big. It does focus around him, and I thought because obviously there's a lot of with a film like this, you kind of get a lot of time to kind of see the cast list before anything's happened, and I saw a lot of big names and thought, oh well, he's kind of he's the male lead, but is he going to just be playing second fiddle to someone else at the end of the day?
No, he's given a lot of freedom to run with his character.
A lot of people have criticised Anne Hathaway. I know you're not a big fan.
I'm not sold on Anne Hathaway, just in general. I don't really think I've ever liked her in anything. But she's fine in this. She doesn't really add. I don't think she adds anything to it. I don't really feel her emotions in it. I don't feel her connection with her father.
That was distant.
She's very
compared to the connection that McConaughey has with his daughter,
which I think is one of the more kind of, which is very different and from a lot of Nolan films. What he's tried to do in this film is create more human relationships. His direction's often described as sterile and lacking humanity. But I think this, whilst being this kind of sci-fi epic in other galaxies, is also a very kind of human story of father-daughter love. Like the original script was codenamed Flora's Letter, which is his Nolan's own daughter, and he names each of his scripts after one of his children. But I think that kind of shows what he wanted to convey in this as a real love letter from father to daughter.
It's massive. That connection between the two of them is fantastic.
One thing I would say though is that he doesn't really seem to love his son very much, does
he? That's quite funny. Yeah. That bond they have, is sort of what drives the film in a way, and it's the theme of love and kind of, in particular, a father and daughter love is one of the kind of massive, hard-hitting things that he does with this. That's not, like you said, it's not just about the action. And he gets these characters and this script to convey a story that is touching, actually. I mean, there's a fantastic moment where he gets to see his daughter's words.
The video footage.
From 20 years in the future.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. We were in tears.
We were both. I mean, but it's true because the idea of being able to communicate with someone who you think you've lost, but you have a slight hope that they might be. I mean, that's just outstanding scene.
Yeah, that is a great scene.
And McConaughey's fantastic in it. I mean, he's watching it, and
you can really feel his emotion. And I think you have to mention as well how great the young girl is who plays his daughter.
Yeah, she deserves
because
credit.
Well, I often find that those children roles are often overacted and you don't quite believe their emotions. But she's really very convincing. Jessica Chastain is equally good once she's grown up.
So Jessica Chastain plays the grown-up daughter of Matthew McConaughey,
and I think she's a very good actress.
She's classy.
She's very classy. She looks the part and kind of. But not in a showy way. She's just very stable and very convincing, and you can feel her emotion throughout it, particularly those video clips.
The video clips are fantastic.
There is a touch of corniness every now and again, I think. With some of the dialogue is slightly clunky, and it's a bit.
Do you mean clunky in the sense that it's overly, sentimental?
I think it could be accused of being overly sentimental at times. I love a bit of sentimentality.
We both
we love a kind of chick flick or a romantic comedy, but I think for Christopher Nolan, who has not made this kind of character love story before, you can tell it's slightly new to him.
Yeah, but it's. That being said, I think it's really well done. What's nice, I tell you, I'm realising this now actually, there's no the big love is the father and daughter. There's no kind of he could have so easily got the Matthew McConaughey character
I
and
was
Anne
expecting
Hathaway
that.
to fall in love.
Yeah.
And that, I was thinking that was going to happen actually, because they're kind of marooned on this ship together, and she even says to him, oh, we're going to be spending a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And you think, oh God, here we go.
But then equally you find that she's driven by love as well, of a different kind.
Yeah, so they're all the characters actually, the one thing they have in common is they're all doing it out of love.
And it makes that very obvious, and maybe slightly corny, but very kind of touching message that Anne Hathaway gives in one of her dialogues, that
the speech about
that love transcends time and space.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a little bit. But that could be corny, but I think that was actually
she did
powerful. I thought that
was
was really powerful, that moment. And it is sort of true in a way, I guess. I mean, like the things. There's that phrase, "Love is blind," and the characters all at one point are sort of blinded by their love for one person or another, and makes them do decisions that, in a circumstance where you've got the whole of humanity at stake, you can't be blinded by.
Well, it gives that massive dilemma, doesn't it? Whether, given the chance, you would save humanity or be with your family. Yeah. And I mean, like, how do you respond in that kind of situation? I don't know, but it throws that out there.
It's inspiring. There's no doubt about that. And we said, when we first taken our seats, we said the one thing I really want to happen is to get a little chill down your spine.
Which I got.
Oh, more than once.
Yeah.
I mean, they're real, and credit to bloody Hans Zimmer, the genius that he is. I mean,
some people as well hate the Hans Zimmer.
I mean, I just can't see any. For me, there's no hate there. It's all love for Hans.
Yeah, I love a Hans Zimmer epic score.
Yeah, you've got this kind of incredible soundtrack with these unbelievable images.
Well, that's one thing we haven't talked about yet. I think one of the incredible things about people, reviewers giving this 3 or even 2 stars,
Camilla Long,
is the fact that it is just such an incredible achievement. It almost feels disrespectful to criticise it quite so much. I mean, even if you don't enjoy, I can understand a lot of the criticism of it, as we've talked about. We've talked about a lot of criticism, but said how maybe we see it in a different way. But I think giving a film like that, that's quite so game-changing and so incredible to just look at, 2 stars is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It just sort of, you wonder how they can enjoy anything. You can't. It's
just got no lust for life.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing about film, you want to come out and you want to say, wow, that was like, I got enjoyable. Taken to a different galaxy in this case, and I was completely transported. And whether you kind of find some of the plot holes a bit difficult to fathom, it does that. Yeah. And you are transported. And Christopher Nolan is a master at doing that. He does take you to his world.
To places you didn't think you were going.
I mean, he is redefining the kind of blockbuster image that it can't be good because it's got a big budget. Yeah. He is, all his films, although they have big budgets, he makes them
totally original.
Yeah. And now we have a new dimension, which is the kind of character relationships that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah. And I think he'll improve on how he handles that in further films, hopefully. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know, like, where with the creative people like that, where does the creativity stop? When do they run out of ideas?
What, for a new film?
Yeah, I mean, like, where does he go next from that?
That is actually a good point, because this is so, it feels like the kind of, although
so large.
Yeah, if you were to kind of chronologise Nolan's films, this seems like a kind of good end almost. I mean, it's not obviously not the end, but it's like the big showpiece for me at least.
Certainly aspires to be that.
Yeah, because it's kind of he's built up and he's started in the kind of.
Well, the showpieces of the film itself are so huge.
Yeah. But he's now in this world where he's completely gone from reality.
Yeah, I know.
And where's next? Like, you can't drop back to.
Yeah.
For him, I can't imagine he's clearly found what drives him now, because he's kind of there's this steady build to it. like each film has been slowly getting more and more kind
Detached.
of but that's an interesting prospect for whatever he's got planned next. And I presume he's not going to do anything for a while.
Well, he doesn't make
this.
a film for every year, does he? Yeah, I think we'll be waiting a while for the next one.
But that's not a problem. I mean, that's kind of a nice thing because you don't want. He makes sure that what he does right, and I think it's fair to say that this was right. Time well spent.
Well, I think one other thing we should maybe touch on as well is the fact that he's got a new director of photography in this film, and after
Van Hoyten.
Exactly, and after the success of Gravity last year in a look sense and cinematographic sense, I think this improves on it massively.
Yeah, I mean,
and I didn't think that was really possible.
Yeah,
but the ice world is incredible. There's a scene with a huge wave, which you'll have seen from the trailer, which is amazing.
That wave!
The worlds that he creates and the wide shots of this ship in space with black holes.
You see them in the
Saturn.
posters, but like when there's that streak of purple going across the screen, and then there's just the spinning ship. I mean,
it's really incredible.
It is. I mean, obviously last week's review was Mr. Turner, but this is art in itself. The way that he's manipulated. I mean, you literally go, how?
Yeah.
How is that on my screen?
Yeah.
Like,
you really do wonder watching that kind of thing how it's possibly made.
I honestly have no idea. I'm not going to try and claim I have any idea.
No.
There might be a screen involved, but
no, he doesn't use green screen.
Okay, well, scrap that. He's both of them deserve credit, Hoyt and old Chris. Yeah, no, it's really just. I mean, that's what I was saying before. Even if you don't enjoy the story, I think you'll go in, have a kind of bombastic, incredible to look at ride, and come out not having been bored. With a 3-hour film, which is an achievement in itself. Yeah. Really. So, I mean, if we were to kind of sum up everything, we've touched on negatives, but for both of us, I think we've been quite positive. We kind of we've seen those negatives more now that we've thought about it, and obviously preparing for this. But when you first come out, you're in such a state that you're just kind of in that fantastic kind of period, half-hour period after the cinema, where it depends how long it is, depending on how good the film is, where you're just in this zone of kind of, sort of back in the film, sort of you just coming into
about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic achievement of this, and it's what cinema's all about, and that's why this film is fantastic, and that's why you kind of have to see it in IMAX. 100%. The sound, in particular, in IMAX as well as the picture. The sound is incredible because there's so many like explosive, shuddering moments, and it really echoes kind of through your seat and through your body, and that really adds to the emotive kind of aspect of the film. Yeah, especially with hands busting out the score. Just doing it. So I mean, this seems like quite a nice place to kind of put a close on things. It's fair to say we both recommend this film. We're going to see it again at some point. Yes. Be quite interested to see it in normal size screen actually, but maybe not. I don't know. Could be interesting. Anyway, this has been great fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'm going to put this on YouTube, obviously, because you will be watching it on YouTube if you are watching this. And let us know what you think. And if you've enjoyed this, we'll do more. I'll get some more interesting guests than Noah on. Not that there really is anyone. And we'll kind of go from there. But thank you, sir, for your help. And thank you for watching.